The Galactic Council sat in silent arrogance, each representative adorned in symbols of their power. They had seen civilizations crumble at the mere suggestion of their intervention, countless species welcoming what was, in truth, a velvet-gloved annexation. This time, however, was different. They weren't dealing with fragile, scattered factions in the outskirts of the galaxy. This time, they were focused on a relatively new addition to interstellar space: humanity. The humans were fascinating but primitive by the Council's standards. They hailed from a small, rocky planet on the edge of a quiet solar system, and though they were known for their tenacity, the Council saw them as little more than stubborn children who'd stumbled upon advanced technology. To the Council, humanity was a raw resource, one in need of guidance, governance, and most importantly, exploitation. They were curious about Earth's resources, human innovation, and the potential to mold humanity into a tool for the Council's vast and intricate goals. Such potential, they thought, should not be squandered on notions of independence. The proposal had been crafted with what the Council believed to be unparalleled subtlety and generosity. It was, after all, more than they'd offered most. Humanity would retain a nominal level of self-governance, just enough to keep their pride intact. They'd benefit from advanced technology, improved health standards, and economic assistance. In return, the Council would gain access to Earth's resources and influence over its government. The document was phrased carefully, designed to appear like an opportunity rather than the takeover it truly was. They assumed humanity would leap at the chance. When the human representatives reviewed the offer, however, their response wasn't one of gratitude or excitement. It was rejection, swift, unwavering, and oddly, without negotiation. The human ambassador had simply stated, "We appreciate your interest in collaboration, but we cannot, and will not, yield our sovereignty. Earth and its resources are not up for trade." The Council was dumbfounded. In their experience, lesser civilizations rarely refused a seat at their table. Their emissaries spent the following days trying to convince themselves that humanity simply didn't understand the offer. Perhaps they were unaware of the Council's influence, of the sheer power held by the united species sitting in that chamber. There had to be a way to make humanity see reason. Ambassadors from several species were deployed immediately. The Varlon, a species known for their tact and diplomatic prowess, were the first to attempt reasoning with humanity. They spoke in careful, reassuring tones, explaining how the Council's influence could elevate humanity's status. The ambassadors' words dripped with promises of prosperity and prestige, highlighting humanity's opportunity to join a select group of influential civilizations. Humanity, however, listened politely, then repeated their decision. Their words, while respectful, left no room for interpretation. Council members began whispering amongst themselves, first in curiosity, then in frustration. For the first time, they were faced with an entity that simply didn't respond as expected. These weren't the behavior patterns the Council was used to. If the humans understood the magnitude of the Council's reach, why did they refuse? And what did they hope to gain from such stubbornness? As the humans continued to stand firm, the Council decided to escalate. A new proposal was drafted, one slightly less diplomatic. If humanity wouldn't accept a friendly invitation, perhaps they'd appreciate a more forceful suggestion. This time, the language in the document emphasized the Council's strategic and military advantages. It was an implicit threat, but crafted with plausible deniability. If humans valued survival, surely they'd reconsider. But humanity remained unyielding. Their response came in the form of a simple message. "We are prepared to defend our home and our freedom. Do not mistake our politeness for weakness." The Council was thrown into disarray. Their confidence wavered, especially among those who had dismissed the humans as trivial. What were the humans thinking? It seemed irrational to the Council, borderline reckless, but there was something unnervingly resolute in humanity's tone. The ambassadors began to suggest that maybe, just maybe, they'd underestimated the humans' resolve. It was here that humanity's uniqueness became apparent to those in the Council who were willing to see it. Most species, when faced with the full force of the Council's reach, would take the pragmatic path, agreeing to terms, making small sacrifices for the promise of peace and advancement. Humans, however, operated on principles foreign to the Council. They refused to bend, valuing independence and self-determination above comfort, power, or wealth. It was a quality the Council struggled to comprehend, let alone counter. Still, the Council refused to accept defeat. They gathered experts from each species, scholars in xenopsychology, strategists, and historians, to dissect humanity's defiance. The analysis was thorough, every detail scrutinized, yet no clear explanation surfaced. Humanity was paradoxical in nature, an erratic blend of cooperation and fierce independence. The Council discovered that humanity had a history riddled with conflict, perseverance, and a strange tendency to rally under pressure. If anything, adversity seemed to strengthen them. And that fact, more than anything, unsettled the Council. They decided to engage with the humans through a psychological approach, hoping to appeal to their sense of progress. If humanity wanted respect, perhaps they'd be amenable to recognition, conditional membership within the Council, not as a subjugated entity but as a minor partner. It would allow them a degree of independence while still bringing them under the Council's oversight. Once again, humanity's response was unwavering. We do not need permission to define our place in this galaxy. Partnership for us means equality, not hierarchy. The Council was now undeniably perturbed. Behind closed doors, frustration turned to bewilderment, and bewilderment turned to outright alarm. Humanity's defiance was spreading unease, even fear. They were used to control, to compliance, yet here was a civilization that outright refused both. And this civilization, though smaller and seemingly weaker, did not tremble at the Council's threats or their promises. Panic began to ripple through the Council's inner circle. Some members suggested that perhaps the humans were bluffing, that their defiance was a facade meant to hide fear. Others warned that humanity was simply different, that they lacked the same biological and cultural impulses that made other civilizations comply. The humans, they said, were uniquely driven by ideals rather than self-preservation, a concept that was as alien to the Council as their dominance was to the humans. In that chamber, where galactic laws were crafted and enforced, a realization slowly dawned on them: humanity was not like the others. They would not bend, not even for promises of prosperity or threats of ruin. The Council, for all its power, was dealing with a civilization that saw freedom as non-negotiable. And in the silence that followed, the weight of humanity's refusal settled over the Council with an unsettling finality. They could no longer dismiss humanity's defiance as mere ignorance or arrogance. It was a calculated stance, a deliberate decision. And in that moment, the Galactic Council understood they were facing an anomaly, a species that defied every pattern, every assumption, every rule they had relied on for millennia. The Galactic Council's chamber, typically a symbol of unity and control, was now tense and unsettled. Humanity's refusal had set off a chain reaction of disbelief and frustration among the Council members, who found themselves grappling with a scenario they hadn't anticipated. The initial dismissal of humanity's audacity had given way to unease, as every attempt to sway or intimidate Earth's representatives was met with the same unyielding response. The Council's authority, its legacy of dominance over countless systems, had been openly challenged, and the confidence that once radiated through their chamber had begun to wane. A heated exchange broke out between representatives. Some argued that humans lacked the proper understanding of the consequences they faced by defying the Council, insisting that a stronger show of power would force them to comply. Others, however, were growing concerned about the potential consequences of pushing too hard against such a defiant species. Inwardly, each Council member recognized an unspoken truth: they were rattled, unsure of how to handle an entity that didn't react as expected, that didn't see the Council's authority as absolute. An emergency session was called. Council members from the most influential civilizations convened, a rare event usually reserved for existential crises or declarations of war. This time, it was humanity's defiance that brought them together, and the weight of the matter was evident in their expressions. The head counselor took a deep breath and addressed the assembly, stating, "This is an unprecedented situation. Never before has a species refused us without so much as a negotiation. They are making a mockery of our authority. A murmur rippled through the chamber, expressions shifting from annoyance to concern. The counselor continued, "It is clear that our current approach is ineffective. We must determine the reason behind humanity's stubbornness and decide on a unified course of action." One representative, a high-ranking diplomat from the Xenorax species, leaned forward, his voice filled with both frustration and a hint of apprehension. "We have offered them prosperity, status, and security within the galaxy. Yet they reject all our overtures without hesitation. What do they hope to achieve with this foolish pride?" A series of proposals began to surface, each one more desperate than the last. Some advocated for a show of military power, perhaps a minor strike to show the humans the futility of resistance. Others argued for a more diplomatic solution, suggesting that humanity's defiance might stem from fear or misunderstanding. They reasoned that if the Council could make humans see reason, they would eventually realize the benefits of joining the Galactic Order. But beneath the surface of these discussions was a deeper worry. They were not used to this level of defiance, and it was quickly becoming clear that humanity's resolve was unlike anything they had encountered before. The Council decided to bring in a team of experts, including xenopsychologists, historians, and strategists who could offer insights into humanity's motivations. These experts pored over every piece of information available on Earth's history, culture, and psychology, hoping to find an explanation for the humans' unexpected response. What they discovered only served to deepen the Council's discomfort. Humanity, they reported, had an extraordinary tolerance for adversity and a fierce attachment to independence. They had risen from primitive societies through an unrelenting series of challenges, each more complex than the last. Rather than breaking them, these trials had instilled a culture of resilience, one that seemed almost pathological to the Council's experts. Humanity, they realized, did not fear struggle. In fact, they appeared to thrive on it, growing stronger with each conflict and setback they faced. Such a civilization would not respond to threats in the way other species did. They would not cower or submit out of fear. To the Council's dismay, it became evident that the humans' refusal was not rooted in ignorance but in a calculated defiance based on a long history of overcoming seemingly insurmountable odds. As the Council's analysts presented their findings, a heavy silence fell over the chamber. The Council members exchanged uneasy glances, each one grappling with the implications of this new understanding. If humanity truly valued freedom above security, if they indeed saw struggle as a natural part of existence, then coercion might only strengthen their resolve. The Council had dealt with proud species before, but humanity's pride was of a different nature, unyielding, almost defiant in its intensity. And it was becoming clear that they could not simply force humanity into compliance without provoking an all-out conflict. Another emergency session was called, this time with a single agenda item, to determine the feasibility of using military action to subdue humanity. The military strategists, however, did not offer much comfort. "Our simulations indicate that, while humanity lacks the advanced technology we possess, their strategic adaptability is a potential risk factor," one strategist reported. "Their history is filled with examples of creative solutions in the face of superior forces. Should we engage in open conflict, there is a high probability they would adapt quickly, potentially enlisting allies or using tactics that could destabilize our control over the sector." The Councilor's face tightened as the strategist continued. "Moreover, our analysts suggest that a show of force might only serve to unify humanity against us. They appear to rally in the face of a common threat, drawing strength from adversity rather than succumbing to it. We would be wise to consider that any attempt at intimidation may have the opposite effect of what we intend." A ripple of anxiety passed through the assembly. The Council's strategies of dominance, honed over centuries, suddenly seemed ill-equipped to handle this new challenge. Humanity was proving itself unpredictable, and the realization was unnerving. To engage in conflict would be costly, perhaps even dangerous. And yet, to simply leave humanity be would mean acknowledging a defiance that might embolden other species, setting a precedent the Council could not afford. The Council found itself trapped, caught between a need to preserve its authority, and the sobering realization that brute force might not be enough. Finally, a Council member from the Drathack species, known for their analytical precision, spoke up, his voice carrying a hint of reluctant respect. "Perhaps we should consider a new approach," he suggested. "Humanity does not respond to force or incentive in the ways we are accustomed to. They value autonomy above all else, to an extent that verges on irrational. If we wish to bring them into alignment, we must engage them on terms they respect. Coercion will only lead to resistance." Reluctantly, the Council began to entertain the possibility of granting humanity a limited form of recognition, one that would allow them a semblance of independence while still keeping them within the Council's sphere of influence. It was a compromise, a concession that many in the Council were loath to consider. But the alternative, an all-out confrontation that could destabilize the sector and cost countless resources, was equally undesirable. As the session drew to a close, there was no clear consensus. The Council was divided, caught between tradition and the stark reality that humanity could not be treated like any other species. Each representative left the chamber with a lingering sense of unease, an unspoken fear that, for the first time, they had encountered a civilization that might not be bendable or conquerable. And in that growing uncertainty, one thought echoed across the Council's minds: perhaps the galaxy was changing, and perhaps humanity was only the beginning. The Council's power, once thought absolute, was no longer assured. Humanity's refusal was more than a single act of defiance. It was a challenge to the very foundation of the Council's rule. And as they dispersed, each representative felt a growing sense that their future was, for the first time, uncertain. As the Galactic Council's tension grew, the humans remained remarkably steadfast, unwavering in their refusal to submit. But what was driving this resilience? The Council's diplomats and strategists couldn't fully grasp it, and for once, their psychological assessments were stumped. Desperate to unravel the layers of humanity's defiance, the Council sent its most skilled emissaries to Earth, hoping to negotiate face-to-face and gain insight into what exactly fueled this unyielding response. But true to form, the humans provided no loopholes, no cracks for the Council to exploit. Through the Council's ongoing analysis, a new realization began to surface. Humanity's defiance was not impulsive or born from arrogance. It was rooted in a deeper, almost spiritual commitment to self-determination and the preservation of autonomy. These weren't negotiable points, nor were they bargaining chips. For humanity, the Council was beginning to understand, these were values worth risking everything for. To the Council, this discovery was perplexing, bordering on irrational. Most civilizations, after reaching a certain level of advancement, sought stability, comfort, and cooperation. The Council itself was built upon the notion of harmony, order, and shared progress, values they believed any intelligent species would appreciate. But humanity didn't fit this mold. Their records showed a species that had not only survived through millennia of adversity, but had come to view struggle as essential to their identity. For humans, independence wasn't just a political stance. It was deeply embedded in their psyche, almost a part of their evolutionary instinct. One incident, in particular, left the Council with no doubt about humanity's resolve. During a heated negotiation, one Council diplomat, in a final bid to sway the humans, offered them access to exclusive, advanced technologies. These were systems that could increase their productivity 100-fold, systems the humans were still centuries away from developing. Yet the human representative responded without hesitation. "We'll advance in our own time. We don't need to be gifted technology. We've learned the hard way that what's earned is valued and what's given can be taken." It was a statement that baffled and frustrated the Council. Here was a species capable of entering the galactic stage with technological advancements far beyond its current reach, yet they turned it down. The idea that they would willingly pass up an advantage simply to protect their sense of autonomy was bewildering to the Council members. But as they delved deeper, they found that this ethos ran throughout humanity's history. Earth's history was marked by countless struggles for sovereignty, movements that spanned generations and continents, with humans repeatedly fighting, not for resources, but for the principle of freedom. The Council tried a new tactic, offering humanity a chance to play a vital role within the Galactic Alliance while preserving a level of sovereignty, hoping this would ease their transition into the Council's fold. The proposal included Earth as a Special Member. A title that would ensure its voice was considered, albeit limited by the Council's overarching authority. But even this compromise was met with dismissal. The human response was pointed. A limited voice is no voice at all. We'll stand as equals or not at all. This level of commitment defied all expectations. The Council's initial plan, which had seemed simple at the outset, had now spiraled into a diplomatic quagmire. Not only was humanity holding its ground, but they were showing no signs of bending, despite the Council's increasing pressure. For a species of their technological standing, they were shockingly stubborn. The analysts studying human psychology began noting that this intransigence stemmed from something they called collective resilience. They explained that humanity's entire social fabric was woven with the concept of self-empowerment, fostered through countless years of overcoming obstacles. Every council member began to understand that these beings viewed any encroachment on their sovereignty as a threat to their very identity. The council, now pushed to the brink of frustration, issued a final warning. It was direct, free from the pleasantries of diplomacy. Earth could either join willingly or face protective measures to secure galactic peace. But humanity remained unshaken, and the response they sent back sent shockwaves through the Council. A single statement broadcast across multiple channels declared, "We don't negotiate freedom." It was at this moment that some Council members began to perceive that they were no longer dealing with a minor setback but a fundamental clash of ideologies. To the Council, stability meant compliance within a larger system. To humans, it meant control over one's own destiny. These were perspectives that seemed to exist in irreconcilable opposition. A faction within the Council proposed one final solution, a carefully managed partnership, where Earth would have access to Council resources but maintain its complete independence in exchange for an agreement of non-aggression. It was, by the Council's standards, an extraordinary concession, almost unprecedented. But even this suggestion was met with hesitation. The Council had always thrived on consensus and control, and to grant such a partnership to a defiant, unpredictable species would mean setting a dangerous precedent. If humanity retained independence, what would prevent other civilizations from seeking the same? Yet humanity's defiance had struck something within the Council's ranks. Some of the younger Council members, more curious about Earth's culture and unaccustomed to millennia of rigid rules, began to advocate for recognizing Earth's unique perspective. They argued that the Council's attempt to dominate through coercion would only lead to endless resistance. Humanity, they posited, was not a civilization that could be subdued without mutual respect. As the debate reached its peak, the Council found itself at an unexpected crossroads. The proposed partnership was radical, but humanity's resilience had brought the Council to a moment of reckoning. If they chose to fight, they risked a prolonged conflict that might destabilize the entire sector, turning Earth into a symbol of resistance for other civilizations. But if they conceded, they would have to admit that even the most powerful governance in the galaxy could not break the will of a single species. In a final message to Earth, the Council proposed a partnership, acknowledging humanity's sovereignty fully and formally. It was an olive branch, a rare gesture, sent with the understanding that humanity would respect the Council's authority only insofar as it did not infringe on their autonomy. But even this decision was met with a stern response from Earth, reaffirming their stance. Our terms remain unchanged. We stand as equals or not at all. The Council realized, perhaps reluctantly, that it had encountered a species that would not yield, regardless of incentives, threats, or compromises. Humanity's resolve was ironclad, and no amount of pressure would shatter it. For once, the Council had to recognize that they could not exert their power over this civilization without causing irrevocable consequences. And in that recognition, they saw not a defeat, but a lesson, a stark reminder that power alone did not guarantee control. They signed the agreement, formally recognizing Earth as an independent entity, a self-governing member of the galaxy that would collaborate as an equal but would bow to no one. It was a momentous decision, one that changed the Council's perception of power and autonomy forever. The humans had, through their relentless commitment to freedom, altered the course of galactic diplomacy. As the agreement was finalized, Council members left the chamber, some in frustration, others in reluctant admiration. Humanity had set a new precedent, not through advanced technology or wealth, but through the strength of their principles. They had proven that they were not a species to be molded or subdued. They would stand as they always had, independent, determined, and unbreakable. And in the quiet that followed, the Council began to understand that perhaps, just perhaps, they had learned something valuable from this defiant species. After days of tense deliberation and the looming threat of a fractured council, they made their final push to bring humanity into the fold. Every strategy had been exhausted: economic incentives, appeals to reason, and even thinly veiled threats of force. But humanity remained steadfast, standing their ground with a clarity that both frustrated and bewildered the Council. They could see only one option left: a decisive display of power, a show of force that would eliminate any remaining illusions of human autonomy and affirm the Council's dominance over this obstinate species. The decision to use force was met with mixed reactions. Some Council members saw it as an unfortunate necessity, while others balked at the implications. Yet the consensus was clear: they couldn't risk allowing one planet's defiance to undermine the Council's authority, especially given the growing whispers of independence stirring among other lesser civilizations. If they failed to assert control here, they risked igniting a wave of insurrections that would destabilize the galaxy. Orders were given, and an armada assembled, a fearsome fleet of warships, each vessel more advanced than anything humanity had ever encountered. The fleet's mission was straightforward: to intimidate Earth into submission through a series of targeted shows of strength. They would establish a blockade around the planet, cutting it off from trade, communication, and resources. If the humans failed to submit, the blockade would escalate into direct strikes on key infrastructure. The Council was certain that faced with isolation and imminent destruction, humanity would finally be forced to comply. As the fleet took up its position around Earth, the Council waited in silence, anticipating the inevitable call of surrender from the humans. But true to form, humanity did not respond as expected. Instead of caving, they met the blockade with a strategy the Council had not foreseen. Humanity's leaders addressed their people, urging them to brace for hardship and rally in solidarity. What could have been a moment of weakness became one of resolve, as the humans communicated their plight across Earth, turning what the Council intended as intimidation into a rallying cry for unity. Within hours, news of Earth's plight spread across the galaxy. Independent factions and smaller civilizations, long held in check by the Council's influence, took notice. The humans, far from isolated, found themselves receiving covert offers of assistance. Alien sympathizers smuggled supplies past the blockade, daring to risk the Council's wrath in quiet acts of defiance. The blockade, instead of breaking humanity's will, was inadvertently turning Earth into a beacon of resistance. The Council, already unnerved by humanity's unbreakable spirit, was now faced with a larger problem. Their show of force had exposed a vulnerability in their own rule. The very act of enforcing compliance on humanity was unraveling the unity and control they'd worked so hard to establish across the galaxy. Recognizing the situation's volatility, the Council decided to escalate, authorizing precision strikes to bring an end to the human defiance once and for all. But Earth had prepared. Years of observing the Council's tactics had taught humanity to expect the worst, and they'd spent their time in relative obscurity fortifying their defenses. The Council's first targeted strikes were met with resilient countermeasures, advanced shields, diversion tactics, and unanticipated alliances. Each attempt to weaken Earth's resolve only revealed humanity's capacity for adaptation and resourcefulness, as well as the hidden allies they had quietly garnered across the galaxy. Frustration turned to disbelief within the Council's ranks. Every tactical maneuver they attempted was met by a counter, each advance by a new defense. What they had thought would be a swift show of power was turning into a protracted engagement, drawing resources and attention away from other Council matters. And still, humanity's leaders held firm, refusing to submit or yield. Rather than weakening, Earth was emerging as a formidable force, willing to face any adversity to maintain its independence. In an unprecedented move, a group of Council members broke ranks and called for a complete reassessment of the situation. "We are facing a reality we cannot afford to ignore," one Councilor declared, addressing the Assembly with an urgency born of mounting anxiety. Humanity has shown us that they will not be subdued by force. Our efforts to break their resolve have only strengthened it. We must recognize that their independence is not a sign of insolence but a testament to their unique resilience. The Council, divided and exhausted, was forced to confront a bitter truth. They could not simply command humanity into submission. Each attempt to impose control had backfired, pushing them further from their goal. Humanity, through sheer determination, had not only defended its sovereignty but had also exposed the Council's weaknesses to the galaxy. In a final act of deliberation, the Council's leadership convened behind closed doors to address the dilemma. To persist in their efforts against humanity risked sparking a full-blown rebellion among other species and destabilizing the galaxy. But to retreat was to concede that the Council's power was not absolute, that there existed a civilization willing to reject its authority regardless of the cost. This concession was unprecedented, a move that would alter the power dynamics across the galaxy. After hours of tense negotiation, the Council reached a reluctant consensus. A message was sent to Earth, offering them a unique arrangement, formal recognition as an independent entity, free from the Council's direct oversight. It was a significant concession, the first of its kind, and it came with the understanding that humanity would neither infringe upon Council affairs nor seek to undermine its influence elsewhere. When the message was delivered to Earth, humanity's response was measured but resolute. They accepted the terms, not as a victory, but as a beginning. They acknowledged the Council's offer with the understanding that this hard-won independence was a testament to their strength and commitment to self-determination. In one brief but powerful transmission, humanity affirmed their stance. They would engage with the galaxy, but only on equal footing. The Council's acknowledgement of Earth's autonomy sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Species that had long existed under the Council's shadow saw a new possibility, that resistance was not only conceivable but, under the right conditions, achievable. Humanity had proven that even the most formidable power in the galaxy could be challenged, not with advanced technology or overwhelming force, but with an unwavering will to remain free. In the days that followed, a ripple of change began to spread. Conversations about autonomy and self-determination surfaced among civilizations that had once been silent under Council rule. While none openly defied the Council as humanity had, a subtle shift in attitude began to take root, a recognition that the Council's dominance was no longer beyond question. Humanity, through its resolute defiance, had reshaped the balance of power in ways even they could not fully comprehend. The Council, now wary and introspective, returned to its role with a renewed awareness of the limits of its authority. The memory of humanity's defiance served as a reminder that control, no matter how absolute it seemed, could not crush the will of a species determined to remain sovereign. In the end, the Council had not only acknowledged Earth's independence but had also glimpsed a future where their influence might one day be tempered by the very civilizations they had once governed without question. As the Council resumed its duties, the galaxy watched, its inhabitants quietly reassessing their own positions and possibilities. Earth, though modest in its resources and technology, had achieved something monumental. Humanity's victory was not only for themselves but for any species that might one day yearn for the same freedom. In the vastness of the galaxy, they had carved out a place, not through conquest, but through sheer resolve, their defiance a beacon for all who sought to stand on their own terms. And so, the galaxy shifted, subtly but irrevocably, as the Council learned the true strength of humanity, not in their technology, nor their armies, but in the indomitable spirit that refused to be subdued. The humans had secured their place, and in doing so, had opened the door to a new era in galactic history. The Council, for the first time, had been forced to concede, their authority tempered by the realization that some species, even the most unassuming, would rather face annihilation than lose the right to call themselves free.